The Premier League's surprise package Nottingham Forest take on Manchester City in an FA Cup semi-final weekend. Can Nuno Espirito Santo's side overcome the in-form City, or will we see City cruise to another final, Kim? It's a great opportunity for Manchester City, isn't it, to put a gloss on a overall pretty bad season?
Yeah, look, I mean, you would think a few months ago that City season was really going to come to a fault. We're only 6 points behind Arsenal now in third and in an FA Cup semi-final against Forest. And I think lots of fans and myself have been quite critical of Pep Guardiola's team selections this year. And I do think a large part of the blame has to lay on him and his reluctance to maybe bench the older players like your Gundigans, your Bernardo Silvas. But he has actually found a solution. And in the last 7 games, City are unbeaten and they've played some actually genuinely very good football. Even thinking back to the quarterfinal of the FA Cup against Bournemouth, I mean, City were in complete control. And that was against a really, really informed Bournemouth side. And you take last game's game, for example, Aston Villa on Tuesday night. They just put 3 past PSG and then destroyed a very, very solid Newcastle side. And apart from Rashford hitting the post after 20 seconds and a very dubious penalty, City completely quelled any opportunity for Aston Villa. And I think when the team selection came out, you looked at it and you thought, oh no, it's Silva, De Bruyne, Gundogan, Kovacic. It's the unction again. It's the old men. But he's found a way now to stop City being so easy to play through. And I think when you've got players who can come off the bench like Jeremy Doku, Marmoush has obviously been starting and very good, and Savinho on the other side, it seems to have found a little bit of a recipe, and it gives me a lot of confidence going into this game against a Forest side who probably aren't that quick on the transition, probably like to suffocate you a little bit more and then hit you on the counter-attack. And I just think the way that City have been playing, packing that midfield, makes me feel a little bit more confident for this one than I would have been, say, a month ago.
Kweku, Forest have been the surprise package. They've, I think, been a lot of the neutrals' favourite side this season because everybody's looking at them and thinking, could they break into the Champions League? Which is remarkable when you think about where they were last season, sort of narrowly avoiding the drop. Am I right in saying that most of the neutrals will be behind Forest going into this one?
For sure. They've been a revelation. They finished 17th last year. I think everybody had written Nuno off, and he's just found a way to get the best out of, let's be honest, a bunch of misfits. There's players there like a Hudson-Odoi who didn't succeed at Chelsea. You look at an Anthony Elanga that fell out of favour at Manchester United, Chris Wood that was surplus to requirements at Newcastle, and banded them together and created a very, very good football side that are more than happy to relinquish possession, but are very effective when they get into the final third. And this is such an intriguing tie in terms of that clash of philosophies and clash of styles, because over the last 5, 6, 7 years, City have been the most possession dominant team we have ever seen in the Premier League. And Forest, they in terms of their big games, they don't possess the ball at all. They like to give the ball to the opposition. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this lines up. The fact that it's at Wembley, I think, plays in City's favour. Yeah. I think the bigger pitch, I think the fact that it will be neutral in terms of 50-50 fans in the stands, I think the City go into its favourites. But if Forest get into the final third and they take their chances and they are defensively resolute like they were against Spurs on Monday night, then there is no reason why they can't upset the favourites for this tournament in City and go on into a final as well as challenging for a place in the top 4.
I think it's quite rare when a team, and I say juvenile, which isn't really the case with Nottingham Forest because they've got a lot of players who've played a lot of games, but they haven't been in these big moments before. And it's very rare when you get a team like that coming up against a very experienced team, particularly at Wembley in an FA Cup, and the younger team in that aspect gets the better of them. And I think that massively plays into City's hands here. Like, yes, this game would save City's season. If they win the FA Cup and finish in the Champions League spot, it's been objectively a successful season. But I don't think any of these players will be having sleepless nights in the lead up to this week. I think all of the Nottingham Forest players will be lying in bed with butterflies in their stomachs because this may be one of the biggest games in their careers so far for a lot of them. Same for Nuno Espirito Santo. And I think that massively plays into the hands of City. I think they've just been there so many times before that this Nottingham Forest team may get a little bit overexcited, a little bit over-exuberant. You see it all the time, don't you, in these underdog games where you have quite a lot of good chances, good possession. You might snatch at the ball a bit too quickly because you're so eager to score. And I do think that's what makes me think that City are probably favourites for this one.
Yeah, I think experience plays a massive part in events like this, and you're absolutely right to make that point, Kim. I do think one of the impressive things about Nottingham Forest this season has been the way they've gone forget what everybody tells you is the right way to play football. This is our way. This is going to work for us. This is playing into our strengths. And the coach deserves a lot of credit for that, but also the players deserve a lot of credit for kind of maybe at times having to put their egos to one side and saying, no, this is the right way. We bunker in, we defend well, and we look to hit people on the transition. And to do that effectively, you have to be so efficient in the final third, which they've been. Hudson-Odoi, Elanga, Wood, they've had unbelievable seasons, which is incredible. But I do think in a game like this, it's almost a case of where Nottingham Forest style, I think, is actually going to work against them here.
Yeah.
There are so many teams that you can give the ball to and you can bunker in against. And 9 times out of 10, they don't have that creativity to actually find a way through you. And they don't have that ability to unpick the lock. Whereas Manchester City do. They've got players that are not only incredibly technical, but very fit. They've got players that are very experienced. They're not going to worry about the fact that it might take them 60, 70 minutes to break Forest down. They've been there on many occasions, as you say. They've faced low blocks week after week for years after year after year. So I think for Forest, actually, their style in this instance probably plays against them.
They need to be brave, though, don't they? They do need to be brave. Like when... Again, it's a high risk style, and when you look at the XG of their forward players, they're running hot, and there's always a thought that can come to an end. But for example, their wide players, Hudson-Odoi, when he sees a space, attack it. Same as Langer, don't look back at Langer, just look forwards and literally get out their fullbacks. Because you look at Man City's fullback options, as good as Nunes has actually been in recent weeks, he's got a lot of flack, but he's not been as poor as people made out. And O'Reilly is very, very good going forward. But again, he's a young player in these situations. Langer, Hudson-Odoi, take your men on. Chris Wood has to take his chances. I agree with you, it does play into City's hands, but if Forest are brave and they do continue to run hot when it comes to taking their chances, then they've got a very good chance.
I think the one thing that I would say about Forest, and I've mentioned it on this show before, there seems to be an element of Ranieri's Leicester. A bunch of misfits, including the manager, who just get together and everything works well. And for Leicester to succeed in the way they did, which Forest obviously haven't, but in the way to succeed that they did, they needed one player. And their player was Riyad Mahrez. They needed that creative player who could just come up with a spark of brilliance. And I feel like Forest have that in Gibbs-White. And I feel like any time that he is playing, you're always susceptible to an attack, because you watch any Forest goal, more often than not, he is either directly at the heart of it, scoring it or assisting it, or it'll be him picking the ball up on the edge of his area and making a drive and run and playing a fantastic pass. That's how they score. And I do worry in that matchup in midfield with Gibbs-White against your Bernardo Silva, Gundogan and Kovacic, who don't really have the legs anymore. They're all prone to a bit of a tactical foul. And I do think that if he's running hot, that is one way that they could hurt City.
I think he's really good at getting on the ball in those deep positions as well. Like we talk about what he does in the final third, and we talk about their strength being on the transition. The way he gets on the ball, sometimes in front of his own penalty area, has already looked up, knows where the runners are going to be, and can just spray it early. Yeah. I think that's massive. One of the side stories to this game, though, is a story that broke probably last week now, but I think is quite an interesting one. And I'll come to you first on this, Kim, being the Man City guy. Kevin De Bruyne, are you surprised that he didn't get a new contract offer? Because it sounds like he was surprised.
The last few games he's been better, but the rest of the season he's been really poor. And let's be completely honest, I said last week, I think Kevin De Bruyne is the best player to ever play for Man City. He's an absolute legend. None of this would happen without him. He is the catalyst for everything that City have done over the last decade. But over the last few years in particular, you don't get enough games out of him. He's injury prone quite a lot. He's obviously lost a yard of pace. And I think it's a shame to get rid of him, because his passing is so good and his shooting is so good that even if you bring him on for 20 minutes, he can always create something because he's so brilliant. But you do also have to look at the financial aspect of it. It's a player who's on upwards of 400 grand a week, and City need to buy some new blood. There's talks of City buying Gibbs-White, there's talks of City buying Florian Wirtz, and I just think it's harmful to have a player on such high wages, especially with PSR and all of those things, if he's not going to be playing more than 10 games a season, and if of those 10 games, he's not going to be starting more than 3 or 4. I think my heart wants him to stay, but my head says it is probably the right decision. But I would absolutely hate it if he joins another Premier League club. And I know Aston Villa apparently are in for him, so that would hurt.
Yes, it's a tough one, and we've talked about this before, Harry. Contracts for players of that age is not what have you done for me? It's what you're going to do for me. And if Kevin De Bruyne in a midfield equivalent had a Mo Salah season, then he'd be rightly aggrieved to be like, why am they offering me a contract? I'm a club legend. I'm putting up numbers. I'm still affecting the team in a positive way. But you're right, Kim. It's a shadow of his former self. And it's sad to see from a neutral's point of view. Kevin De Bruyne is one of the best players this league has ever seen. But you've seen it physically, he's not there anymore. Obviously, he's going to always have it mentally. But from City's point of view, you can't have your highest paid player, or any football team, your highest paid player has to be your best player. And if Kevin De Bruyne is the highest paid player because of his legacy, then I think you're going in the wrong direction, especially in the world of PSR. So it's the right decision. I can understand why he feels a little bit hurt, because that is his football club. And in a previous era, before PSR and before FFP, look at Manchester United, the legends stay. The legends renegotiate the contracts and they stay. In this modern age, it can't happen. So I understand why City are letting them go.
Kim feels quite confident about this one. So let's get your prediction first. How do you think this one's going to go?
I think we'll concede, because we more than often do, and I think we'll concede first, but I think we'll go on to win 3-1.
Kweku?
It's such a tough one. I'm going Forest to win via penalty shootout.
Wow. I'm going to go 1-1 extra time and City to come through in extra time. Let us know your predictions in the comments section below.